Welcome to my unboxing of the Galaxy GeForce GTX 660 Ti factory overclocked, so Galaxy clocked edition, 2 gig card with custom cooling and their force air bracket, supporting 3+1 display gaming, DirectX 11, PhysX, 3D Vision surround, using NVIDIA's latest 28nm manufacturing process, which gives you outstanding power efficiency, even compared to lower-end, lower-performing last-generation products. All of the usual Kepler features, including adaptive VSync, as well as TXAA, FXAA, so these are new, better, either faster or higher quality anti-aliasing methods. You've also got full support for GPU Boost, which takes your, GPU Boost, which basically lets your graphics card clock itself at whatever it needs, staying within a certain power and temperature threshold in order to give you the best performance it can give you in any game that it wants to give you that best performance in. That sort of petered out near the end. But the point is, it's good. It uses the same chip as the GTX 670 and 680. So this is a GK104 chip in here, and NVIDIA hasn't even really cut it down a lot. So instead of a 256-bit memory interface, it's using a 192-bit memory interface, but the memory is still clocked at 6 GHz, and the core is still at the same clock speed as a GTX 670. It's still got 2 gigs of memory because NVIDIA's done some funky reconfiguring with the memory controller so that they can actually run different density memory chips on different I don't know if channels is right, but whatever. They can mix and match the density of the memory chips in order to have a 192-bit bus, but an even 2 gigs of video memory instead of 1.5 gigs of memory like we would have seen in the past. The first time we saw this was on, I think, the 550 Ti. So now we're seeing this on high-end cards, and this is truly a high-end card. Uses a PCI Express 3.0 interface, supports, as I mentioned before, 3+1 displays using DVI, HDMI, and DisplayPort. It's got Galaxy's custom bracket on the back, which is going to give you a little bit more exhaust, but in the case of a card like this, where most of the exhaust is going to be around the card because it's using an internal exhaust cooler as opposed to an external exhaust cooler, it's not going to make that much of a difference. It's got dual SLI fingers, meaning this is, yes, a 60 level card, so like a 460, 560, 660 Ti, 60 level card that supports 3-way SLI. Soak that in for a moment. It supports truly high-end features. This custom card from Galaxy has a 6-pin and an 8-pin power connector, which in theory should deliver more power to the card if it needs it, but it's probably unnecessary given even the GTX 680 uses 2 6-pins, unless you buy the Galaxy card, which does have a beefier power delivery system. Speaking of beefier power delivery system, the reference cards are using that short PCB, almost the same PCB as the 670. I mean, it uses the same chip, and it's clocked at the same clock speed, and it's clocked at the same memory speed with the same amount of memory, so it's pretty similar, but they had to redo it a little bit for that mixed density memory-ness that's going on. So Galaxy has not used that shortened PCB. They have done a beefier PCB with more VRM components. You can sort of see them all here. More cooling and more length, so it's a longer PCB on the Galaxy card, and but it still uses these top-mounted power connectors, so you shouldn't run into any sort of obstructions sticking out power connectors out of the end of your card. This cooler is actually phenomenally efficient, so we compared it. I've actually already opened this card and already tested it and benchmarked it in sort of every way, but you know, whatever. This cooler actually is significantly more efficient than the TwinFrozer 4 cooler on the MSI Power Edition card. I was really impressed by that. It also includes dust removal technology, which means it spins backwards for a few seconds when you first boot up to blow some of the dust out of the heatsink, and then turns around and spins properly forward in order to give you the best cooling possible. Speaking of the best cooling possible, because almost the entire PCB surface has fans blowing down on it, you have great cooling not only for the GPU core itself, which has these heat pipes carrying heat away from the core out to the outer edges of the fins, but also great cooling for your memory, VRM components, and whatever other things you're going to find on the card itself. This is a pre-overclocked card, but you can still push it a little bit further. So we did manage to overclock this card about another 90 megahertz on the core, which gave us, again, even more of a performance boost. Once you start overclocking the 660 Ti, especially if you can squeeze a little bit more out of the memory, performance gets amazingly close to a GTX 670. Now, it's been true for quite a few generations now that you can take a 260 or the 260 was sort of pretty close to the 280 at the time. That's not the same as how a 460 was to a 470 and a 480. But you could take a 260 and get it pretty close to 280 performance by overclocking. Same for 470 and 480. Same for 570 and 580. Same for 670 and 680. Now we can take a 60 level card and actually overclock it to nearly the same performance as a 670, which has not been something we've seen in the past. 560 Ti's wouldn't be able to touch a 570. And the same goes for a 460 to a 470. So this is a very exciting card, especially given that it's $100 cheaper than a 670 and $200 cheaper than a 680. Supporting all those high-end features, supporting, low power consumption. How do you go wrong, I guess? Have I run out of things to say about it? Let's have a look at the accessories. So Galaxy includes a couple things with their card, which I don't know what they are yet. DVI to VGA adapter, 2 dual Molex 4-pin, 2 6-pin, one is to 8-pin, one is to 6-pin. Some kind of user's manual, and no driver disc. Download the latest from the NVIDIA website. There you go, they're sending a message. Let's just finish up with sort of some closer looks at, this is part of why I think this cooler performs so well. Look how thick the fins are. They're using almost the entire dual slotness of the card in order to either build fans around it or put like massive, look, in between the two fans, they actually build it up a little bit more just because they have a little bit more space to throw in aluminum fins. So that's, I don't think it's anything about, the design is more for the aesthetic, is more for the look. So I don't think it's anything about that makes it perform really well. I think they've just put a beast amount of metal on this card. 2 decent 80mm fans, and it gets, cooled really well. So thank you for checking out my unboxing and first look at the Galaxy GeForce GTX 660 Ti, and don't forget to subscribe to Linus Tech Tips for more unboxings, reviews, and other computer videos.